Welcome to my channel. My name is Jennifer, and I'm excited for you to be here. This channel is dedicated to talking about spirituality, lifestyle, health, and all the things that make us human, all the things that are important for our personal development. And I'm excited to continue to build this channel moving forward. I want to get past this episode so that I can continue to see how this channel unfolds. But before I do that, I feel very called to share my story because probably could relate to a lot of people where I have always been someone that's been very shy, very introverted. And for me to be on camera right now and to talk to you a camera, but I know that there's going to be people on the other side, but to be able to be in this space has been very hard for me. And it's not something that naturally comes from, like a natural ability. It's something that, I have experimented back in 2020. I kid you not, I have made so many videos. I mean, so many videos that I have created and deleted because I couldn't get the words out. I couldn't find the clarity in the moment to speak. And I've come to realize all the way now to 2026 that there is no perfect way to show up. You just got to show up, and you just got to practice, and your my voice is going to shake, and I'm going to be stuttering and whatever, but it is what it is. And I think it's just important to just begin, right? It's just start wherever you are. And that's what my intention is to share that sometimes you're not ready, but you just feel the nudge to show up anyways. And that has always been a theme of mine, of always wanting things to be perfect, or not feeling ready, and all these kind of things. And I grew up very timid in myself, very unsure of myself, very insecure, very lacking self-confidence. I mean, you name it. I had no idea who I was. I was always looking outside of me for validation, for inspiration, for things like that. And I'm very grateful for my upbringing. My mom, she was a single mom, and she did the best that she could, with what she had and who she was, or who she is. And not growing up without a father, those kind of things kind of shape you into who you attract and who you embody, and all those kind of things. And it really affects you when you're younger, and you start to develop coping mechanisms and personalities and all these kind of things when you grow up without both parents. And also in my childhood, it was a little bit chaotic. In my household, a lot of things were going on at that time. A lot of things that caused me to really shrink in myself, shrink in my voice, and really I developed a survival mechanism of just hiding, of just not being seen. Because I remember as a child, before all of that chaos started to happen, I was such a vibrant child. I always loved taking pictures. I always liked to be seen and pose. And I was doing ballet at the time, and it was something that I was excited to be in front of people and to dance and all those kind of things. And then over the years, with all the stuff that happened in my earlier years, I started to dim my own light, and really was afraid to speak, was afraid to be seen, was very insecure and all those kind of things. And Um, I had no awareness of who I was or who I am or any of that. I never questioned that. I grew up in a very Christian household. I would go to Sundays every I would go to church every Sunday. And that was kind of my life of, my mom did the best that she could at keeping me like, as a good girl, as someone that, goes to school, goes to church, whatever, all those kind of things. And yeah, it kind of kept me tight. But whatever, that's not what I want to. I don't want to go too deep into my childhood, but you can get an overview of like how not growing up without a father and all these kind of things kind of shape a child in their life, and the partners they choose, and the habits and all these kind of things. And back in 2008 was a really dark time in my life. I had just finished graduating from high school, and I mean, high school was very extreme for me. I had gained a lot of weight, and I remember it was the era of like the Abercrombie, the Hollister, that kind of vibe, Laguna Beach, and all these kind of shows, and it was very, very prominent to be like the skinny girl and fashion and all those kind of things. So I was really like into that, and because I had gained so much weight in high school, I was like so insecure about myself and all these kind of things. One thing led to another, and I started to go down a really dark path of having an eating disorder that completely changed my life. I mean, this was something that I kept hidden for a long time. I was suffering in silence. I was quite literally destroying myself inside out. And it was a very lonely time for me. Like, even though on the outside, the clothes fit, everything was great from the outside, but from the inside, I was miserable. I was crying for help. And there were multiple times where I tried to tell someone, and I just felt like I didn't want to burden, it was like my mom. I didn't want to burden her with with what was going on with me, because I know that she was already dealing with stuff that was already happening, and I just felt like very helpless, and I know that where I was heading was not a good path. And I started to experiment it with drugs, and that was when I joined hair school, and it was kind of, I felt like I was in my rebellious state. I was like smoking weed and all those kind of things, and experimenting with substance. And I mean, that was a very self-destructive path. Like, I was crying out for help. And fast forward to 2017. No, let's fast forward to 2016. 2016, my both of my grandparents passed away, and it was the first time that something hit home, because it was like the first time that I've experienced someone close to me pass away, and it was just like a really difficult time. My grandmother, she had left me some jewelry, and I was like, you know, I know that she would have wanted me to travel and to experience the world, because that's something she always talked about. And so I decided to pawn the jewelry and use that as a way to travel. There was a client of mine in one of my in the salon that she was like my age, and she was like, yeah, I just came back from a trip to Europe, and I went with another group of people, and we all met there, and like it was super fun in a group, and it sounded like such a amazing opportunity. And I was like, yeah, tell me more about it. And she like gave me like, the info, and I did the research, and I was like, oh wow, like this is something that I feel in my heart and my soul that I would love to do. Like this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And given that, traveling to Europe by myself and meeting other strangers, like, it was like a big risk, but something inside me felt like it was something that I needed to do. And so I used the money from the jewelry to pay for the ticket, and that trip changed my life because it gave me the opportunity to see the world, like to explore like places that I've always dreamed of or always heard about. And that's when I felt like I was expanding, when I got to take a risk like this and meet other people and do things I've never done, and it really opened me up in a way that it was such a beautiful experience, because it was like my grandmother had left me such a beautiful gift, and I turned it into an experience that changed me forever. And I remember in that trip crying, like looking at the Eiffel Tower, and feeling such an immense gratitude for being there and to witnessing the beauty that was all around me. And yeah, fast forward, I wanted to do it again. I felt like the first time I was like a little bit scared. I was more like, I was still getting the hang of being in another country alone, and with other people that I've never met or whatever. So it was like a little bit kind of dipping my toes or whatever, but I wanted to do it again. So 2017, I booked another trip. And this time it felt different. It felt like, well, let's retract a little bit, because right before that trip, I had the most expansive moment of my life that completely transformed my life. I started experimenting with psychedelics, LSD, with a friend of mine, and she's a little bit out there, but she like, yeah, she told me about LSD and how it opens up your mind and makes new neural connections in your brain, and all these people that are like, like Einstein and Steve Jobs and all these kind of people that are like smart, like they use this substance to expand their consciousness. And I was like, oh wow. So, well, an entire week of experimenting with LSD. And let me tell you, it blew my head off, quite literally. It changed everything for me. I was able to finally see my own self for the first time in what I was living with my eating disorder and what I was doing for myself. And I was able to see the world differently. I was able to see the patterns and everything. It was just, I have no words. I have no words to what happened to me. It was beyond. And every day was a new experience. Every day was a new realization. I mean, I'm a very responsible person. So given that I was on psychedelics, I still managed to go to work. And that was an experience because, naturally when you're under the influence, you feel like the whole world is going to think that you're on drugs, right? But I realized that that LSD, like if you are able to be calm in yourself, you can actually, it's all in your head. Like a lot of these insecurities and a lot of these thoughts that we have are in our head. So I still went to work, and it was very interesting because it's almost like a part of me that was dormant was like switched on. And I was like, I mean, I'm someone that's always shy, very always keeping to myself, doesn't really communicate with too many people and like that kind of stuff. I was like freaking vomiting verbal diarrhea all over, and I was just like talking to my clients and like to the people in my job, and everybody was like, wow, what's going on, like who is this version of you, and like all these kind of things. And obviously I was on the substance, but it's almost like, I guess, that many days of being under that, and I've never done something like that before, it kind of like activated something in me. I now think that it's like your vibration, you start to raise your vibration to a certain state that you start to access parts of you, like from such a high vibrational, because we were laughing the whole time, that we were like, just that whole week was like nonstop laughing, creativity, and like, I mean, it was all over the place. It was such a crazy time, such a crazy experience. And it completely transformed my life. I mean, I was able to even, it sounds crazy, but I was like even reading my clients' thoughts, and just getting intuitive hits, and the way that I was communicating, it was like everything was in a flow, and such a natural confidence that came over me, that I was like, wow, like I'm finally able to be myself. I'm finally free to finally express myself, to be who I truly am without feeling insecure or afraid to speak or anything like that. And as crazy as that sounds, it's really what happened. And it's like I peeled the veil, and I got to see through what was actually underneath all of the noise and all of the insecurities and all of the boundaries that I put on myself, and self-limitation. And I kid you not, then shortly after, I went to Europe for the second time, and this time was something else. This time I was like curious, and I was just seeing it's like I was seeing the world for the first time, and everything was exciting to me, inspiring. I felt like taking pictures, and I felt like I was the main character of my own movie. And I remember I run out of money or something like that, and I had to go leave the bar where we all were, and I had to walk like by myself to go to a cash exchange place. And I was like, okay, well, I'm by myself, I have no GPS or whatever, I'll figure it out. And that was a moment, that I felt the freedom of like, if I can do this, I can do anything. If I can walk by myself and find my way back, I can do anything. And I remember that walk, it was in Amsterdam, and I think one of the Backstreet Boys songs was playing, and there was like bubbles, and like there was a crowd of people, and I was just like, wow, this everything just feels so amazing, and this is like everything like synchronistic and perfect. And I made it back to the bar. Like, I mean, 2017 in Europe was the time of my life, and I would never forget that, ever, ever. And it's what really expanded me in such a way that I'm forever grateful. And well, shortly after that trip, that high started to go away. And I thought it was something that was going to stick. It was something that that I have finally achieved, and there was like a sense of confidence that I was like, yeah, I somehow crossed a threshold in my life, and I finally am free to be myself. But that no, I turns out that I now know that the psychedelic allowed me to see that, experience that, but I needed to do the inner work. I thought at that time that I needed to continue to take the psychedelic, to take LSD to maintain that part of me. But it was quite the opposite. It was like I got to experience that self, and then I had to do the work. It didn't come that easy. Like all that I experienced didn't come that easy. And I mean, at that time I had no idea. So all I was doing was chasing the high, chasing that feeling of like wanting to get back to that version of myself. I moved to New York because it was like a long time dream of mine. And that was a big step for me because it's the first time I actually moved by myself to a new state, and to have my own like little closet apartment situation, and really be by myself and do my own laundry and all these kind of things that were all new for me. But ever since that Europe trip and all that gave me the confidence to actually take that step. But then shortly I realized that New York wasn't for me. It was a dream of a version of me that I thought that I was. And I quickly came back, as embarrassing as that is. I came back within a month. It was a very long month, let me tell you, and probably like the worst month to go to New York. It was like during February, and really cold, very isolating. A lot of things happened then. But it was also an amazing time. I would never trade that experience for anything. And it taught me a lot. It taught me how to be self-reliant, and that I can do anything. That if I can go through the subway and work and walk in the snow and do all these things, then I can do anything. And that gave me the confidence to be more free in myself. So I'm grateful for that. But as far as the whole like psychedelic thing or whatever, the best way that I can describe it is that my brain got a reset. Like I remember shortly after that whole thing, I did mushrooms by myself in my room, and I experienced the everything, and like my mind finally put together the pieces that everything is connected. Like this whole experience, everything that we're living is connected. And we can go into details at some other video, but I had that realization, and then at the same time I had this like clearing, this reset that happened in my brain. And I felt like, I don't know, the best way I can describe it is like my mind got reset, and like I really realized up until that point I had nothing, that no knowledge of anything. I had nothing. I never read a book. I never asked questions. I never, like, I was never curious about life. So the best way that I can describe it is that in that moment I felt like a moment of curiosity opened for me, and then that's when I started to want to learn. I wanted to read books. I started to really go into like topics that really mattered, like self-development, health, all these kind of things, and open up the curiosity for me, and I'm still curious about life. I still love and see life in a way that as a child, as this beautiful planet that we live in, and all the experiences and all the things that we go through are just are amazing. It's magical. It's a blessing. It's an honor to be here, And I started to live my life through those lens. But I also started to do the inner work, the dark night of the soul, like really being with myself, and understanding my insecurities, my blocks, my health was a big one. Ever since that moment of clarity that I had, I started to figure out, like, things about my health, like how do I reverse a lot of this damage? How do I eat healthier? How do I, you know, prioritize my health? And still to this day, I mean, now I feel like I'm more stable, but it took me a lot of different experimentation with different types of diets and so many things. I mean, I've tried from so many angles, and it all comes back to basic things, right? But that's another video that we'll talk about. But yeah, I started my journey in that moment. That mushroom journey really is what set me off to the journey of healing myself. I was encountering relationships and situationships and things like that that were showing me how much I didn't love myself, how much I didn't value myself, and how much I would give away just to be wanted and seen and to be validated. And that's something that we can talk about too, but it was a catalyst for me to love myself. It was a catalyst for me to finally start to shift my perspective on life, on myself, on what I was, what am I doing? What do I want to do? How do I want to contribute to this world, to this reality? What's my purpose? What's my mission here? Those questions were like something that I was hungry for. Religion was another thing that, growing up Christian and all these kind of things, I started to see life a whole different way, that I didn't need to go to a temple just to worship God. Like, God is in everything. God is everywhere. God is infinite. You know what I mean? There is no, you're sinning and you need to repent and all these kind of things that they indoctrinate you with. So a lot of those belief structures, a lot of things, I kind of started to rewire that. And fast forward to 2020, that was a big shift. I feel like that was the initiation. And I right before the pandemic hit, I ended up going to Guatemala, and I went to Lake Atitlan, which was kind of like a place, like a city that has like a really big lake, and there's like little towns around it. And I went to a mystery school there. I took a risk. I mean, I was supposed to go to Europe, to Southeast Asia, and this whole thing that I had planned for months, and that didn't happen. But I knew that I wanted to experience something. I knew that I was on a quest for something. So I ended up going to the mystery school, and they taught me about yoga, about astrology, numerology, meditation, like all the initiatic path and everything. And that's when I started to learn that everything was connected, like, and all the things, that all this wisdom and all all this knowledge that I was so fascinated about, and that was the beginning of me really diving into those kind of things. Like, even me being part of the, like, because there was like other people from all parts of the world that were in this course, and I felt like at the outsider because I was the only one wearing black and kind of like not really fitting into the rest of the group. um but that's okay, because like it was, I was just, that I know that would, whether I didn't look like the rest of the people, I know that I was there for a reason. I know that there was something that called me there, and then the pandemic hit, and that's when I started to get inspired to, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to serve? How do I want to contribute my energy? So I actually wrote down in a book, in a journal, I wrote 2020 and beyond. And under that, I wrote all the different modalities and all the different things I wanted to study, and I wanted to kind of like dive deeper into. Ironically, I'm a Virgo, so I like making a list and all the kind of things. So I started to go down that path. I started to doing manifestation work with money and all those, like reprogramming that, doing meditation. I mean, I was diving into anything that came my way, crystals and all these kind of things. And then 2022, I started to explore tuning forks. And tuning forks are like this vibrational sound instruments that go on the body and work around the body and stuff. And we can talk about that in another video. But I started to get certified in that, started dipping my toes in that world. And 2023, I started, I got introduced to Kundalini activation. And this was the first time that, I mean, I was curious because I was just like seeing how these people were moving and how how energy moves and all this kind of stuff. So that opened up the whole like curiosity for me, and I started to dive deep into that work, and it was something that was really calling to me because I got certified in Reiki. But this seemed like a little bit more extreme, and the extreme is what caused me to be more curious about it. So I did the first training, and it was like a door in. And then I was looking to do another. I did another training, and my purpose for that was that I wanted to collaborate with other facilitators and to see how I can start to offer this work. And so I did that training, and it was a good because it was more like in person, and I got to practice and all that kind of stuff that I wanted to do. And then the third training was with a facilitator that I really admire, and she's amazing. She's really in her integrity about this work, and I learned more the theory side of things and the things that I wanted to learn more about the training and how to facilitate properly and how to open up a field and how to, all those kind of things that are important when you're a facilitator. Fast forward, then I did light language activation with my dear teacher. She's amazing. And then I started to dive into that world. I was curious. It wasn't that I wanted to start doing light language. It was more like I wanted to see what that was about. And then that opened up a whole kind of worms because then I started to go into star seeds and different lineages and all these kind of things that I was like, wow, I have no idea. Like this whole world exists. And then I did some energy orgasm because I wanted to learn that part of facilitator, but it didn't really resonate with me too much. And it was more of a curiosity than like I'm actually going to offer this. And then fast forward to now, I all this time learning and going on my own journey and experimenting with so many different paths, and plant medicine to courses to training, so all these kind of things, and really trying to find myself in this world, and understanding what my medicine is, what I want to offer, and where I fit into all of this, and going down the rabbit hole of astrology, human design, gene keys, all these kind of things, have really, and that's, it's really important because those are blueprints for your soul, for what you're here to embody. And ironically, I'm here to speak. I'm here to share my story, share myself, share my knowledge, and embody these truths. And here I am. I that's why I wanted to create this channel, to just share who I am, and what I've been learning, like diving deep in through all these topics that I just mentioned, and sharing from that perspective, and sharing my relationship, my marriage, like all these kind of things that I've learned on my path, that have shaped me and that have really inspired me to show up and to share this with you, and to build a community. Like this is what I want to create. I want to create a community where other people that probably have gone through the same thing, or are curious, this is a place for you, because I know that it can be very lonely out there. There's sometimes this path and this life, it can be very isolating. And as someone that loves to be in hermit mode, I know that it's time to share with other people, and to be in community, and to be in harmony with others, and to voice my opinions, voice my what I know from my heart, and that's what I hope to build with this channel. And I know that my story probably was all over the place, but that's where I came from. That's what I've been through, and it's brought me to this moment, to finally accept myself in my entirety, and my weirdness, and my whatever. And I'm here, and I'm ready to continue to show up, and ready to continue to explore new ways of sharing this stuff. And yeah, thank you so much if you made it this far and you've listened to my story. I am very grateful, and I hope that you stick around, and don't forget to subscribe if you feel the resonance, and to give a like to this video. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for being here. Bye. Take care.